Good day dear students, I am Amir Hafiz Malik and welcome one more time to another video lecture on translation skills. That is our topic for today, and this is one of the most complicated topic because translation is a tricky thing. Translation is a complex thing. Translation is a demanding skill. It is not that easy as it looks. So let's go with number one. What is a translation? So it deals with writing skill. Let's have a very quick short brief view of it. It is basically dependent on three aspects. One is text, number two is translator, and number three is the translation, which is the product. Very shortly, we can call translation as languages transfer. By languages, I mean more than one. It can be 2, 3, 4, 5, or maximum number of language, depends on the needed translation. Let's define translation. What is translation? Translation is the ability to transfer ideas, style, tone, and cultural elements accurately from one language to another. So, although there are some words in it, but this is very comprehensive definition. Let's go with transfer of ideas. Now, ideas given in one language, they are transferred to another language. So there is a transfer of ideas. Number two is style. The way the text is composed in the one language, the same style should be there in the translation. The translator must not or should not change the style. Tone. The way the tone of the text is, that must be accurately as it is translated. And cultural element, this is very important because we all know that there are cultural differences, but the duty of the translator is to maintain the accuracy of transferring the cultural elements into another language. Translation involves two languages. Translation is the transfer of one language into another. So 1 plus 1 makes it 2. Language 1 is known as the given language, which is the language of the text or the paragraph to be translated. We can also call it the source language because it is given to us as the input, and from that we have to produce the output as the translator. Number two language is called the target language, which is the language of the translation. So in which that text or paragraph is to be transferred or translated is known as the target language because that is the target of the translator. So I hope you understand the concept of the use of two languages in the translation. It can be more than two as well if other languages are involved, but naturally or in common academic practice in Pakistan, we believe that there is translation from one language into another. In our academic word, we do Urdu to English translation or English to Urdu translation. So we deal with transfer of two languages only. Translation skills, it has three aspects. Number one, translation is a science because it is systematic process of transfer of text. There is a system, there is a mechanism, there is a process involved in our text, and that is the method of science. So same scientific approach is applied in translation. So that is why translation is called a science. Number two, translation is an art. It requires artistic talent to reconstruct the original text in the form of a product. So yes, a translator becomes an artist while transferring the original message into the required language. Number three, translation is a skill. It means it demands the ability to handle any difficulty in translation. So only the skilled person, only the skilled translators, only skilled persons can handle those difficulties. Therefore, translation is three. It is science, it is art, and it is a skill. Translation skill requirements. Yes, there are certain requirements to be a translator or to undertake the activity of translating one text into the other. Number one is a rich vocabulary or a word bank. Unless the translator has a rich vocabulary or a huge word bank, it might not be possible to transfer one text into another language. Number two, knowledge of languages, sentence structures and tenses. So the translator has to be an expert of two languages given and the target language, the sentence structure, because normally they're different. We can quote the example of Urdu and English as well. Urdu has SOV structure, whereas English has SVO structure. Exactly, the tense mechanism is also different in Urdu and English. So knowledge of languages is important. Number 3, deep understanding of cultures. We have already discussed that point, that cultures have some similarity and differences in text. They are there. So if a translator has a deep understanding of the cultures, then it can become very easy for him or her to do translation. Number 4, translator's vision. As an artist, there should be literary skills of the translator to keep the beauty of the text as that is in the original text. Number 5, reading comprehension skills. Read, understand and reproduce the text. This is very significant. Number 6, composition skills. The writing craft is also very important for the translator. Next we go with the types of translation. Yes, I've highlighted the 4 types of translation. Number 1 is called the literal or word for word translation. Each word is translated. I've given the example. If we go with Urdu translation of imtihanat sar par hain into English and we say exams are on head, this is word for word translation. Number 2 is idiomatic translation, which means expression or sense translation. The use of idioms in translation, expressions in translation. Example, imtihanat sar par hain, exams are at hand. That is the idiomatic translation. Number 3 is sentence translation. These are individual sentence translation. One sentence is not connected to the other. Like I've given you the examples of examinations are at hand and next is what day is today. These are 2 different sentences. Number 4 is paragraph translation or connected sentences translation. Like I have quoted the Urdu paragraph, इम्तिहानात सर पर हैं, अब वक्त ज़ाया नहीं करना चाहिए, हर मज़मून की मुकम्मल तैयारी करनी चाहिए, शॉर्टकट का नहीं सोचना चाहिए. So all these sentences are connected in the form of a paragraph. So these are the 4 types of translation. Next is criteria for a good translation. I have highlighted the 5 points. Number 1, so a good translation carries all the ideas and literary subtleties of the original text. Number 2, a good translation is idiomatic, fluent and smooth. Number 3, a good translation reconstructs the cultural historical context of the original text. Number 4, the knowledge of the grammar and vocabulary of the source language and a good understanding of the text to be translated makes translation good. And finally, number 5, a good translation is never complex but easy to understand. Then I'll be talking about the translation problems. There are 2 types of problems in translation. Number 1 is linguistic problem, which include grammatical differences, lexical ambiguity and meaning ambiguity. Number 2 is cultural problems. The cultural problems include cultural differences and delicacies. Poorly translated text distort the cultural aspects. So these are the 2 major translation problems for the translators. Next is useful tips for translation. Number 1, be exact and accurate, avoid complexities. Number 2, be idiomatic and avoid literal translation. Number 3, break long sentences into short sentences. Number 4, do not use unknown or archaic words. Number 5, maintain the same impression as created by the original text. If you follow these useful tips, I believe you can become an expert translator and the task of translation can become very easy for you. Next we go with the model translation. I have given Urdu passage and I have translated into English. Let's read out. The given language is Urdu and the target language is English. एक अच्छी हुकूमत का सबसे बड़ा फर्ज ये है कि मुल्क के लोगों के लिए ज़रूरियात ज़िंदगी सस्ती करें. ज़रूरियात ज़िंदगी से मुराद महज अनाज ही नहीं है, बल्कि कपड़ा, तिब्बी सहूलतें और तालीम वगैरह भी ज़रूरियात ज़िंदगी में शामिल हैं. हुकूमत को कीमतें गिराने की पूरी कोशिश करनी चाहिए ताकि देहाती और शहरी दोनों तबकों से ताल्लुक़ रखने वाले अवाम मुनासिब ज़िंदगी गुजार सकें. The greatest duty of a good government is to lower down the prices of daily necessities of life. Not only grains are the necessities of life, but also clothes, medical facilities and education are included in them. The government should try its best to lower down the prices so that both the villagers as well as the city people should live a reasonable life. So this is an idiomatic translation, and you can see that the beauty, that the impression of the original text is maintained in this translation. Finally, the exam questions. Number 1, translation, definition, types and requirements. Question number 2, criteria for good translation. Question number 3, translation problems. Question number 4, tips for translation. Question number 5 is translate the following passage. A text can be given and you can be asked to translate it into the another language. Activity is take a paragraph in Urdu or English and translate it into the target language. The reading resource is Smart Communication and Language Skills by Professor Amir Fiz Malik, page number 141 and 142. Thank you so very much. تو آج ہم نے ٹرانسلیشن سکلز کی بات کی اور سب سے پہلے ہم نے ٹرانسلیشن کی تعریف کو دیکھا اور ہم نے دیکھا کہ یہ صلاحیت ہے خیالات کو، انداز کو، لہجے کو اور ثقافتی عناصر کو بڑی ہی مہارت کے ساتھ اور مکمل طور پر ایک زبان سے دوسری زبان میں بدلنے کا یا ترجمہ کرنے کا۔ ٹرانسلیشن میں 2 زبانیں استعمال ہوتی ہیں، ایک سورس یا گیون لینگویج ہوتی ہے جو دی جاتی ہے، جو ٹیکسٹ یا پیراگراف کی زبان ہوتی ہے، اور دوسری کو ٹارگٹ لینگویج کہتے ہیں جس میں ترجمہ کرنا ہوتا ہے۔ ٹرانسلیشن 3 طرح کی سکلز کا نام ہے، یہ سائنس ہے، اس میں پروسیس اور سسٹم ہوتا ہے، یہ آرٹ فن مہارت ہے، اس میں آرٹسٹک ٹیلنٹ کی ضرورت ہوتی ہے، یہ ایک سکل ہے کہ مشکلات سے کس طرح سے نبرد آزما ہونا ہوتا ہے۔ ٹرانسلیشن کی ضروریات ہیں، اچھی ویکیبلری ہونی چاہیے، زبانوں کا مکمل علم ہونا چاہیے، کلچرز کا گہرا ادراک ہونا چاہیے، ٹرانسلیٹر کے پاس ادبی سکل ہونے چاہیے، ریڈنگ کمپریہنشن سکلز ہونے چاہیے اور تحریر کی مہارت ہونی چاہیے۔ ٹرانسلیشن کی 4 قسمیں ہیں، لفظی ترجمہ، بامحاورہ ترجمہ، جملوں کا ترجمہ اور پیراگراف کا ترجمہ۔ اچھی ٹرانسلیشن جو ہے وہ ہمیشہ مکمل ٹرانسلیشن ہوتی ہے، یہ بامحاورہ ٹرانسلیشن ہوتی ہے، اس میں روانی ہوتی ہے، اس میں تمام تہذیبی، ثقافتی، تاریخی عناصر کو شامل کیا جاتا ہے، اس میں گرامر اور ویکیبلری پر خاص توجہ دی جاتی ہے اور یہ پیچیدہ نہیں بلکہ سمجھنے میں آسان ہوتی ہے۔ 2 طرح کے مسائل کا سامنا ہوتا ہے، لنگوسٹک پرابلم جو زبان، گرامر وغیرہ کے مسائل سے دوچار ہوتی ہے، اور دوسری کلچرل پرابلم کے کلچرل میں جو تہذیبوں کا، ثقافتوں کا فرق ہوتا ہے اس سے بھی کئی مسائل جنم لیتے ہیں۔ پھر کچھ ٹپس ہیں، ایگزیکٹ اور ایکوریٹ ہونا چاہیے، پیچیدگیوں سے بچنا چاہیے، محاورہ ترجمہ کرنا چاہیے، لفظی نہیں کرنا چاہیے، طویل جملوں کو مختصر جملوں میں تقسیم کر لینا چاہیے، غیر استعمال شدہ انجان الفاظ استعمال نہیں کرنے چاہیے، اصل ٹیکسٹ کے امپریشن کو قائم رکھنا چاہیے۔ پھر ہم نے ماڈرن ٹرانسلیشن دیکھی، اس میں گیون لینگویج اردو تھی، اردو سے انگریزی میں ترجمہ کرنا تھا، اور ٹارگٹ لینگویج جو تھی وہ انگلش تھی، اس کا بامحاورہ ترجمہ کیا گیا۔ آخر میں ہم نے امتحانی سوالات اور ایکٹیویٹیز دیکھی۔ مجھے امید ہے آج کا لیکچر آپ کے لیے بڑا مفید ثابت ہوگا۔ آپ کا بہت بہت شکریہ۔ تھینک یو سو ویری مچ۔